Hello, Batfly, aka Donnie. So it was requested on GB Fans Forum that I make videos of how I'm assembling my scratch-built 1/8 inch styrene proton pack. So let's get started. Step one is planning. Today I'll be working on the gun mount. So the first thing I do is I draw all the pieces I'm gonna need, and I figure out where my thickness walls are gonna be. I like all my front pieces to be a solid piece, and then I make the sides, I adjust them for, let's say, like, this front piece is going to be an 1/8 inch, so you have to take an 1/8 inch off from back. If you're gonna have a top and bottom piece and this is gonna be smaller, you have to take off 0.25, or basically twice the amount. So since this is an angled piece, I want this top piece to be solid and have it rest on the angle there. So this is going to be adjusted both here and here for the 1/8 inch thickness, and also this is going to be adjusted so that faceplate's going to be flat on there, because I don't want any seams on the front. I don't mind seams here, even though they're going to be filled and sanded. So I figured all that. I usually do this like the night before, just so I don't have to do it the next day. So this is already pre-done a couple nights ago. So let's get to laying it out on the sheet of styrene. So I picked up a digital caliper for about 10 bucks at Harbor Freight. I really love this thing. It makes things easy. So I'm gonna start off on these side ribs right here, just because I got a nice little section from cutting the rest of the stuff. It's over the length I need, and this edge is gonna be where I start the bigger pieces. So I'm just measuring off 4.5 inches from this side, and like so. Also using a straight edge to make really nice straight lines, kind of obvious. And where is my pencil? There's my pencil. So we're just lining that up, getting it straight. It helps to start with straight edges. And so line this up. All these pencil lines is where we're going to be scoring our razor on. Now I'm going to adjust this. It's always good to recalibrate it, re-zero it out to 1/2 inch for the width of the fins or ribs. You ever notice people making videos like talk weird? It's like, I'm going to try and not do that, but I probably will. Because you're trying to figure out what to say and remember points you wanted to make. Now, you can eyeball, you don't have to get it exact. I'm OCD, so I will play with it till it's exact. Probably wasting me a lot of time. But whatever. It makes me know my pack is as close to dimensions as I could get it, and whatever. So lock that down. Sometimes it changes a tiny bit when you lock it down. There we go. And now I'll measure bottom up. That's 1/2 inch. Now I am scoring the plastic with the sharp edge of the gauge, basically scoring this so I know where the pencil line goes. Otherwise you gotta come up and draw a line, but it's sharp enough, so I just score it. Alright, so I need 4 of these. Get out our handy dandy right angle ruler. Get it lined up on our score mark and draw it across. And I'm not going to show you this for every line I'm drawing because it takes a while. That would be boring. So we're just going to skip ahead to everything laid out. Okay, now we are done with blocking everything out. I had a little scrap piece here that was good for making the extra block here. Right there, the V-hook goes on to, which wasn't in the earlier part of the video, which I added it right there. I forgot it, but it's done now. So I can actually check that off as I go through these. I check off every piece that I've done or blocked out. And now it is time to cut, which we'll be using only an X-Acto knife for. That's it. X-Acto knife. Just score and snap. So let me set up the camera for the next shot and we'll get to that. Okay, so we can clear all this off. Now, I find to do this, you just want to go slow with a medium amount of pressure. You don't want to go super light because this is going to be the path that you're going to make your next repetitive scores on. So just go slow. Watch the line that the razor is on. Slowly, like, turn it. If it starts getting a tiny bit askew, you want to make this as straight as possible, obviously. And we're just slowly going over it. And you always have to watch it when you get to the edge. You'll tend to do that. Make sure your leg, other arm, pet, loved one is not in the way of when it snaps down. And you can either slightly score all the lines or you can go back and rescore the original one. For 1/8 inch, also known as 0.125 inch styrene, I score it about 5 times. Now the next ones after the initial one, you're going to press harder, quite a bit harder, like twice as hard. So this is like heavy pressure. You can go a little bit faster, but not too fast. Otherwise, you can start to squirrel out. If that happens, you want to come up from the opposite edge to even it out. It's not very desirable because as you get to where it's squirreled out, you'll kind of get a little, that's exaggeration, but you'll get a little hook or hump action. But you can sand down, or if it goes on the inside, oh well. If it's a gap, when you put it together, you could fill it in and sand it down. So mistakes can be hidden if they're not too sizable. So that's 3. That's 4. That's 5. My count could be wrong, so we'll do one more. 6. I also forgot to mention earlier, you want to make as many straight lines that connect the same as possible. It's easier for snapping it, and it's also easy for keeping most of your lines straight. For an angled piece, when there's 2 sides, I will measure out one spot, the short spot, then the long spot, and that basically, and then you connect the 2. So then you have the 2 angled pieces. Once they're snapped apart, you turn it around and you have the same angle on both pieces when they share the same angled piece. I hope that makes sense, because if not, I'm sorry. So we're going to continue scoring. I tend to do all the light scoring first in the same direction, and then I'll turn the board and do all the other directions. So that first line where this one here where I did it a couple times was just to show you what it looks like, I guess. I've gone and I have now scored 5 times each, all the lines. And now what I'll go through, and I normally do this before, but I'm going to do it here now just to show you. I'll go by and I'll extend a lot of these lines just for relief. When you're bending and snapping, it just makes it a lot easier. So like you don't have a lot of these inside things. And I'll also divide these up into nice little sections, which make really nice pieces to glue in on the inside corners for support. And also when you're sanding, you'll have something like if you're sanding a rounded bit, you'll have some extra support in there for material so you don't get like a gap in the corner. Again, hoping that makes sense. In practical application, it will make a lot more sense. But like I'm just gonna go in here and make another one of these little guys for a support rail. So again, when I go to take this out, I will, snap out this whole big chunk, and then I'll snap out the little pieces, and these are just for relief. And then I'll go in and snap these off and save those as scrap to glue in the corners for support. Alright, so now I've scored all my relief cuts and also my little support ones. You notice the little squiggly lines means that's stuff I technically won't be using. That's not part of the main piece, but I will save all my scraps. You'll be surprised how that comes in handy later. So now we just literally just bend this and snap, and that's why they call it score and snap. Now you notice right here, that's what we're trying to avoid with the relief cuts, and since it's on a squiggly part, I really don't care. So that's that. It goes in my little scrap bucket. We'll go over here. Now you'll notice I don't have any relief cuts because I just want to leave this giant section intact for some other piece. So you start a little bit and it will stress the other side, and then when you bend it back, it scores a little bit of the way. You don't have to keep flipping it over. I did it just to show you. So you bend it, bend back. I forgot to turn the music off. I am sorry, guys. I hope YouTube doesn't kill this update just for a little bit. It might mute the sound. If that's what it does, I'll redub it and upload again. Whatever. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing. Now you'll notice there it's a little uneven. I will go back in with the razor and shave that off, or I'll sand it down. And that's just part of the crappiness of what the plastic wants to do sometimes. Let's see if I can get this corner a little bit more. No. Now we'll go to this big section here. But it's just bend, snap, bend, snap. And it gets a lot easier once you get the main block taken out there. So those little sections I'll just show you real quick. Normally I do this at the end, but I'll just go in and try and shave the excess down a little, since this is on a piece I will be using. Try and make it flat. That's pretty good. Now we go to the bigger sections. Now you see why you want to share common edges, but this gets real easy once you get to this part. Now I'm just looking for more places. These smaller pieces, I will actually take a pair of pliers or channel locks and break them off because it's just hard to grip. Actually, oh, there we go. I thought I was gonna have to find them. They're here somewhere. This piece is gonna be a little bit squirrelier right there, just because I got that corner, but it'll be okay. Let's see. Let's go over here. Okay, getting that. Do this one. There. Bam. Then I gotta break that little piece off later, which I will. That one just bent. It didn't even snap. It just bent. And that's fine. Okay, there's the angle piece. See, now you put them together. hit the same angle. We're getting down to where I need my channel lock, so I'll be right back. Alright, we got our channel locks. So, these are really helpful for just giving you some leverage to just really get in there and break off these thin, long pieces. Like so. Start on this edge. I try to start away from the corner, because good luck snapping that corner off first. Pretty clean. It's not perfect, but we'll clean it up. Alright. Now these can leave a little bit of a mark. I'm not really gripping it too tight. It's more for leverage than grip. So all the ribs, obviously. Not so obviously. No, obvious to us fans. Now this, when it gets to two small pieces, I'll bring... I wish I had two channel locks. I should get another pair of channel lock pliers. Well, I'll just bring other pliers. Again, trying to not grip it too hard, as it's just for leverage. Oh, I'm not liking what it's doing there. I'll have to sand that down. Not too bad on this side, so that'll probably be the side I use. These can be kind of annoying because they're so small, so I'll save that for later. That's just, and these are super easy. So scrap. What else is scrap? Scrap. Scrap. And now we will clean these up. It's basically just, you know, trying to flatten down any edges, bring it all into dimension that it should be. Gotta get rid of that little piece. And so I'm gonna go do that. Again, it's just taking a razor, whittling it down, and then going in with a sanding block if need be, just taking it down to a straight edge if possible. And sanding gets everywhere. Spouses be warned, but it's a necessary evil. So now I'm going to prep those and we're going to go on to gluing. Alright, on to gluing. I have been using Weld On number 16. I'm really liking this. It's not too runny, not too goopy. It has a working time of about 5 to 6 minutes, set time of 10, and then 24-hour for full bond. So let's get right to it. These are the two sides with the angled piece on top for the main body part. So I'm going to find the bottom. I labeled it bottom right since this is the right side of the gun mount. So I like the matte side to be down. It's just got like a nice finish, or out, I should say, the matte side out. But these sides, the way I cut it, one's going to be glossy, one's going to be matte. Alright, so we're going to take the side. We're going to start with where this side meets the bottom. And we're just going to apply a bead of glue to where we want it to adhere. Just working one small section at a time. But this is actually the fastest part of the process. So we got the front there, That's the bottom, that's the angled piece. And now this is where I get my handy dandy little mini square out. Line it right up to it. And you do have to hold it for a little bit, which isn't too bad, while it sets. And it's just part of the whole patience process. Yay, patience. But it kind of makes it zen-like. Oh. It's relaxing. At least I find it relaxing. So it's already starting to set, which is good. Got that piece on. I think I'll actually put the front piece on next. Get a nice corner going. And then I'll go in and I'll lay the little support pieces in there. I put these in as I go along because you'll tend to, everything will get closed off. If you do it too late, you won't be able to get in there and reach anything. So, and you can see it's already a pretty strong bond just from the last couple of minutes, which is pretty cool. It lets things go by a little fast. You can see it's a little runny, but it's not like going everywhere. And you see this drip right here? You don't want that to get too far away because this actually melts the plastic together. So if you leave it on there, you can either let it dry and sand it off, or you can try and wipe it off like I just did. So now we'll just lay this on here. And you notice there's an overhang. That's where I counted for when I was measuring. Remember, the sides are measured in 2 widths of the plastic here and 1 width here. Get my little square out. Make sure all this is lining up. Oh yeah, there's that glue smell. It's really not too bad. Reminds me of building models as a kid. It is very much like that smell. And it's surprising how much time you actually do have to work with this and finagle it to make sure everything's lining up. Which I appreciate. Thank you, well done. Thank you. And if you have little bits that stick out, don't worry, you can sand that down later. So now I'm going to go in, just find a smaller piece, and glue in some supports. I'll go and I'll just take my razor and rough this in and snap it off to make it fit. I tend to go a tiny bit, like 1 millimeter or 0.5 millimeter under where I just measured, because I'd rather have a little less of this than too much and not have the pieces line up. Because the glue is going to fill in any little tiny gaps that you make by cutting the pieces off short. So then I just lay this in the corner. Don't worry about getting the glue on your fingers too much. It's actually pretty easy to wash off. Just wait till it dries, hit it with some warm soap and water, and just scrape your fingernail on it. Pretty much comes right off. It's not too bad. I'll take my blade and I'll just like push down. Make sure it gets a nice seal on there, because again, the glue melts the plastics together. So you just push it a little bit. Looks like I have to trim a little bit more. I forgot about to watch for this edge. Always be conscious of how your pieces are lining up. It sucks to have to take things apart and redo because I didn't measure right the first time. So hopefully I can just get in there There, snap that little guy off so the top will line up now. There we go. Then again for this support, put that there, measure it out, do the score, snap it off. And we'll glue this in. You can see why I have this paper here now, so the drips catch on it. And that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna go around, keep gluing this together. Okay, so here is the main bit of the gun mount built. And next I will sand, and I use a sanding block and a sanding sponge. This is good for curves, and this is good for when you want to maintain a straight edge. You'll see, like, if a glue drips and it dries, it does that. If a glue drips, and you wipe it off, it can make a little indent. You can sand all those down. And, you know, it's sanding. It takes forever. But, first thing I'll actually usually sand is where things aren't completely level, like right there. I'll sand that even. And as you can see, it gets everywhere. But it also cleans up pretty easy. Once I get it nice and flush, then you can go in and round out the corner if you need to, which we will need, so I can do that. Find a flush edge already. So to round out the corner, I still use this one for long straight pieces, and then you just kind of go at it, and you try and give each part of the curve even time sanding so that your curve is nice and round and not flat on one spot or more curved on one spot, not in the other. And now we're going to jump ahead to after I've had it all sanded nicely and everything's even and how it needs to be. Alright, now that it looks like I've been hanging out with Scarface, we got most of all the edges and all the glue seams. In here I use the narrow edge of the sanding sponge to get in there. So all the glue seams are done, all the sides are pretty flush. There's a couple places, like right here, I didn't worry too much about because that'll be flat up against the what's it called? The booster tube base frame thing. And now we just got to round out all the corners. So where is my reference image? Here. So it looks like all of here is going to get rounded out. And again, I like to use the straight edge one. And I just go in and I just keep sanding and sanding and sanding. Try to give enough attention to all parts of the curve as I'm sanding. And I use this one just to keep it straight because I was using this guy and it tends to bow in and you start to get like a sanded curve. So when I use my straight block, keeps it straight for the most part. So I'm not going to bore you with this anymore. I'm just going to keep sanding and then come back when all the edges are sanded. I do the edge first, and then I'll go in and just take off the corners so it gives a whole nice all around radius curve. Alright, I'll be back. Alright, here it is all sanded down. It's looking all nice. Now, I don't think I got as big of a radius curve as I've seen on reference photos, but that's okay. This is my idealized pack, and that kind of sanding is just kind of ridiculous. I kind of like it like this. I didn't want it too curvy. I kind of did the same thing on the crank gen, although I did radius at more than this a little bit. And so now I'm going to measure out and draw out where the ribs will go. I'm going to start out from the bottom with this dimension here. I'm going to lay the sides on first because they are pretty easy and will flush up to the top. And then when those are flushed up, that's when I'll lay these, and that way I can square off on the side there, and then I'll go and sand those up. So I'm going to draw up those lines and then we'll come back. Alright, I got everything all laid out. I didn't really need to do too much on this side because you only really need one edge to get reference. So let's get to gluing on some ribs. You know, some people like Tennessee rub, dry rub. Some people like wet barbecue ribs. No, not me. I like well-done number 16 ribs. Yeah, I'm cheesy as all hell. So glue that on. Take my straight edge, make sure it's pushed up against there. Also bring it up here. Just make it all aligned. Hold it for a bit until it lines up. I go in my straight edge, a little glue here, try and take some of that away just to minimize sanding. Not too much because since it does kind of melt the plastic, you don't want to like groove in here. I'm just very lightly rubbing some of the glue away. That's that. Do a couple more, why not? Bead of yum yum glue for my ribs. Looks like I put the perfect amount of glue on there. Nothing's really coming out the sides, that's good. One here. Now all my ribs on all my pieces are perfectly aligned. I have no crooked ones. I understand that's on the original pack and doesn't make it very screen accurate, but again, this is an idealized pack. And I'm sure if people were to make their own pack in real life, making multiple ones, they would probably correct the mistakes they did the first time. That's my thought process. And it just makes my OCD brain happy anyway. Alright. And I love how this stuff gives you enough working time to move stuff around. Like about 5-6 minutes to work everything out before it won't budge anymore. Or it'll just rip off. That's not good either. So I got those. Now we can do some front ones. For the front ones, I'm actually going to fill in this area for sanding. I'll make it real nice and flush. Get on the edge of that too. And then we just go and put on our front ribs. Make sure they all line up. These I probably didn't have to draw any lines for, since I got the these ribs to line them up with, but hey, whatever, they're there, why not? gonna check the edges to see if there's any more manglage on one than the other side. And I'll put the mangled side out towards where it's gonna get sanded, because it will get sanded and that'll pretty much even it out. Alright, we got one more right here. Oh good, I wanted it to bubble up right here, which it did. It squeezed some out there. So I could smear that across and that'll be nice and flush. No seam once it's sanded there. Now this is, I forgot to measure this out, so this kind of works out good because I forgot to draw the lines there. But I don't have to because I can just line it up to this sucker. So that worked out. Sometimes you can measure half and cut once. Okay. I got a lot of excess glue on this sucker. You ever find yourself humming the Ghostbusters theme while you're working? I usually do the over and over. Probably drives my girlfriend nuts when she's home when I'm doing this. And that looks pretty good. Now I'm just gonna have to sand down the sides. I'll come back once more for that, and this piece will be done. Oh, something I forgot to mention is I wait for the glue to be cured at least 24 hours, or maybe even 12. I don't know. To cure, just so like before I sand, so I don't move pieces around or have a piece rip off or get misaligned and then you have a gap or so. This won't get sanded till later, but to you guys it'll be instantly right after this. There it is, the finished piece, finished gun mount. I got all the ribs sanded, and there'll be some places I'll probably fill in and sand, such as right there's a gap, just the glue wasn't there, but it's, you can see it's a smooth round. A couple other places. Shot of primer will reveal all that. But that's it. You want to see the inside, you can see all the supports I put in. And then probably could have cut some of this wall out to save weight, but since it will be supporting the thrower, I do want it to be as strong as possible. So I'll put those blocks on later when it comes closer to that time. I'll probably actually glue it and drill it and put screws in with nuts in the back. But that's it. Hope you enjoyed that.